Well, in the meantime, we're going to talk about what's going on in Ukraine. A troubling new phase is unfolding right now in Ukraine, and we better pay attention to all of the fake stories that we're about to see coming from the White House and the media about the use of weapons of mass destruction. And just like in Syria and Yemen and Afghanistan, the billionaire-run news media are not even pretending to cover this war objectively. Instead, they prefer the narrow contract basically that Noam Chomsky warned us of back in 1991. Pay attention to what he says here in 1991. He lays it out perfectly. Conscientious objectors, right? He understands exactly who we are and exactly how the billionaire class runs the show. Listen to Noam Chomsky here.
Rationality belongs to the cool observers, but because of the stupidity of the average man, he follows not reason but faith, and the naive faith of the proletarian requires necessary illusion and emotionally potent oversimplifications, which have to be provided by myth makers to keep the ordinary person on the right course.
Troubling, right? This is how they play it, right? The myth makers, and they are running the show. They are running the narrative. They are telling you what to believe, and you are able to operate within this like narrow window of thinking, and that's okay. You're able to argue in this little trench over here. But if you are over here with us, with our show, holy crap, watch out. You could be banned, blocked, and made to feel awful about your position.
You know what I think, though, is interesting is that, yes, Noam Chomsky has been predicting that we would be fed narratives for a long time. What he didn't think, I think, at the time, what he never thought is that we would see these narratives and then actively participate in sharing them, in changing our, avatars to a flag or to a symbol or to anything like that. Like, that is how we would make it so easy for them to feed us narratives.
Nazi hater says Jimmy Dore just posted a pro-Nazi rally in New York and all the neo-libs were there. Like, I don't know if it was like a true
story. I saw that comment. Yeah, we'll have to seek that video out after.
Well, keep us naive. Keep control the flow of information. That's right. That's exactly how it starts. And with the Biden administration, it starts there. And then it flows to the news media. And today, we learned that the same group of thugs and propagandists who manufactured the bullshit story about Assad gassing his own people in Syria have landed now in Ukraine. The infamous white helmets. Now, according to Russian government officials, the white helmets are preparing to create a fake weapon of mass destruction style attack to blame on Russia, just like they did in Syria when they blamed it on Russians then, and it was totally discredited. You had excellent journalists like Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, Glenn Greenwald, all debunked this story, right? Then what they'll do is they'll feed that fake story to the Western media sources, and it'll be plastered all over the front pages of the newspapers and CNN and MSNBC and all of the Western media, just like the phony Ukraine theater story that we debunked, or the maternity ward story that's been debunked, or the endless list of other fake stories that have come out of Ukraine. Now, there's a lot of horrible stories that have come out of Ukraine, but there's many that have been jumped on by the mainstream media that were total bullshit. Now, before you say this can't possibly happen, Clayton, it actually already has happened. And it's been covered up by the Western media. And to this day, there's still no apology for what happened in Syria. You had award-winning journalist Aaron Mate completely debunked both the Russiagate story and the Duma chemical attack in Syria, which, of course, proved that these guys doctored a report on the Duma chemical attack in order to place blame on the Syrian government and to justify missile strikes against Syrian government forces by the United States, the UK, and France. He won awards for his reporting. And he's not the only one, by the way, who covered that story and debunked it. But the Western media pushed that whole bullshit narrative, right? Well, now these very same white helmets, the White Helmets Group, co-founded by late British mercenary and ex-intelligence officer James Le Mesurier, rose to international notoriety among the years-long conflict in Syria. Here's a little teaser about the White Helmets. Who are these guys? Watch this little teaser for just like a little palette teaser.
Throughout Syria's horrific war, it's been the White Helmets, a volunteer group which James Le Mesurier helped establish that saved tens of thousands of lives. Their extraordinary bravery pulling people out of buildings as Syrian and Russian jets circled overhead has not only been honored but celebrated, even leading to a Netflix feature-length film about their work.
Yeah, that's right. They even Even get this is how far the propaganda goes, that they even have a Netflix special named after them. Absolutely unbelievable. And that's how far this propaganda goes to paint these people as heroes. Now, let me explain how this works. This is how the white hats unfold, right? I create a fire, right, by setting the place on fire, knowing that there are women and children in the fire. Then I grab my camera and my camera guy, because you're not allowed to be anywhere nearby if you're a journalist, by the way. That's how this works. You're not allowed to be near the white hats when they're doing their thing, their white helmets. Okay, you can't be there. So the building is on fire. The women and children are inside. Then I grab my cameraman, because they always have cameramen with them. And they miraculously, right, the cameramen are always there. Then they rush into the building and they save the children. They're heroes. Did you get all of that on camera? Camera guy, that you're always here managing to film me in just such a situation? Because I walk around the house with camera guys constantly following me, don't you?
Wait, so you're saying that this is staged catastrophe?
Yes.
And that the white helmets are actually the instigators?
And I'm not just saying this. This has been documented, well documented by incredible journalists, right?
And then they are filmed.
They are
as
filmed.
if they are heroic.
Exactly. And these white helmets now, last night, the head of the Russian Radiation and Chemical and Biological Protection Force, Lieutenant General Igor Krylov. It's hard to, I don't want to say Kilolov, because it sounds like that's what it would be in Russian, but Kirillov, Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, who said that the white helmet plan created by the Ukrainian government includes 3 scenarios that are going to unfold, and this is what could happen, ranging from a false flag attack on civilians to tactical small-scale use of weapons of mass destruction, or open deployment of such weaponry on the battlefield. Those are the 3 scenarios. Now, this is journalist Max Blumenthal. I'll let him explain the shadiness of the white helmets and why we should all be concerned about this false flag staging that's about to unfold. Listen.
And these groups are extremely unsavory. It was difficult increasingly for reporters to be around them without losing their heads, literally. James Foley was one particularly tragic example. Alan Henning, there are many others. And so the white helmets were established to become the focus of the Syrian proxy war, and these would be the kind of brave rescuers. They claim that they rescued anywhere between 25,000 and 100,000 people, but there's no evidence to back that up. However, as everyone watching this knows, they were honored and basically showered with praise by all of the elites from London to New York, and that was part of a vast propaganda operation in which the white helmets would not only become kind of a source for all of these journalists operating on the outside who would feed off of the video that they gathered in areas controlled by these extremist militias, but that the reporters and celebrities would be involved in a vast propaganda operation to support humanitarian intervention in Syria. And that led to the white helmets being granted, nominated twice for the Nobel Prize. They had a documentary made about them on Netflix, which, I found to be mediocre as far as documentaries go, but it won an Oscar. And meanwhile, this organization was working hand in glove, not only with Al-Qaeda, but also with ISIS.
With ISIS. But you don't hear this in the Western media, right?
So are you saying that...
Stop saying, am I saying it?
Okay, I just want to clarify
This is factual information from journalists who've covered these guys.
Okay, all right. So let me clarify the message that you are disseminating right now.
Okay.
Is it that these same people are going to do this in Ukraine, or this is a page from the playbook that will play out in Ukraine?
I mean, it's both. It's both a page from the playbook, which has already played out in Syria. The point is like, this can't possibly happen. It already has happened. It's already happened in Syria.
Yes.
To great effect. And it's well documented, the involvement of the CIA in this. Well documented. And the Western media falls right in line with it. And yet they have no journalists there covering it.
Yes.
So literally these stories are fed to Western media. And then suddenly they're all over the front pages of the New York Times and the Washington Post, and they're all on CNN. And we've got breaking news here at CNN, a gas attack. Oh, really? No one's actually looked into this, but the white helmets, and they gave us this information. So we just ran with it. We didn't check anything. We didn't actually do any original reporting on it.
Yes.
But it's amazing that there's actual reporters doing actual journalism and calling bullshit on almost all of this. So to facilitate the looming false flag attack overseas, handlers of the Kyiv authorities have sent instructors of the notorious White Helmets group to Ukraine. Now, Russia's deputy permanent representative to the United Nations, Dmitry Polyansky, says, quote, and I'm going to pull up his quote here on the screen. He says, there is a well-known model in which such provocations, including chemical weapons, are used in other parts of the world. First, as a so-called chemical incident is organized, when pro-Western non-governmental organizations, especially the infamous White Helmets, stationed nearby, quickly arrived, like on the scene. They come out of nowhere. How'd they get here so quickly? And they collect, in violation of the norms of the non-proliferation regime, they gather questionable evidence, and then they feed this story to the Western media. We all know this technology, Polyansky says. Now, to be clear, we've already seen some of this propaganda already, haven't we? Carried out by the Nazi-led Azov battalion. We covered it here on this show a few weeks ago. These idiots tried unsuccessfully to say that Russia was using chemical weapons in eastern Ukraine, right? Remember that? That
Yes.
turned out to be total bullshit, was totally fake, and even the Western media debunked it. The Pentagon even admitted we can't confirm this. So you had these idiot Nazis trying to do their own version of, I guess, what the White Helmets are so good at doing, but they couldn't pull it off. I guess when you have literal douchebags, white supremacist Nazis leading your operation, it's going to fail. But these same Nazis are laughing at Americans right now. Here they are now posting videos on Telegram. Now, this is not just one guy. There's multiple videos like this on the internet. I'm going to show you one of them. Because in America, the Western media has led you to believe that there are no Nazis in Ukraine. There's nothing going on there, nothing to see there. That's just propaganda. So these members of the Azov battalion are literally posting videos, laughing at Americans, showing their swastikas, and they're saying, they're telling you we don't live here, we're not here, we're not a part of the military. Guess what? We are. And they're laughing at us. This is exactly what's going on. Watch these. Here's one of them.
Что вы, нет, украинцы ни в коем случае не нацисты. У нас нет нацизма или фашизма. Мы не такие, нет, ни в коем случае. Что вы, нет, украинцы ни в коем случае не нацисты. У нас нет нацизма или фашизма. Мы не такие, нет, ни в коем случае.
Singing Nazi songs, no Nazi lyrics. Here's my tattoo.
But if you look
swastikas.
closely at that video, they have actually combat gear that's in very good shape. It's all pretty new, and
yeah, great point.
Yeah,
Where did they get that gear?
I don't know, but I'm pointing this out.
Yeah, where did they get that gear? Well, here's a tweet. Tony Jordan says, glad to see our hard-earned tax dollars going to enhance the arming of Nazis. And they wonder why folks have animosity against Biden. You know, I want to say, Tony, a great point, but it's not just Biden. I mean, Republicans are lockstep in this from the outset. They approve these military budgets, and there's nary a dissenting voice. No one dissents. It's Republicans and Democrats. They're all part of a corrupt regime. That's it. We've told you about this two-party corruption for a long time. They are lockstep. When President Biden was running, he said, nothing would fundamentally change when you elect me. Nothing fundamentally has. I mean, that's literally how good the American Western media is at covering this stuff up right now. That Americans are saying, hey, this isn't real. And they're putting Ukrainian flags on their houses. Glenn Greenwald tweeted yesterday, he said he was in a fairly, really interesting, I think it was a conservative enclave in the United States. And he talked about, he's like, I'm driving down the street and I see more Ukrainian flags than I see American flags. And he's in American neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what we've been spoon-fed. And there's nothing wrong in supporting the Ukrainian people. We all do that, right?
Right, but do we know that it's the right thing to support the Ukrainian military, right? This is the question. Is there something right about being anti-Russian people to the point that they can't play in tennis tournaments?
Right.
Because we need to support Ukrainian people. These are such polarizing ways to feel that I'm just so shocked that humans are not smarter than this. To stand for other humans, not trust governments. especially governments you're not familiar with.
Now, is it that is it that we are all just stupid? I mean, I'll just ask our chat room, everyone watching right now, is it that we're dumb?
Well,
I
they're
don't
not
think
stupid.
so.
They're here.
No,
but
no,
are
you're
the people
here.
around you stupid?
No, but you're here, and I see a lot in our chat saying, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know this. Why don't we hear about this?" I see so many people saying, well, "We never hear this in the mainstream media." You're not going to turn on CNN and see this. You're not going to see on MSNBC. You're not going to see coverage of this,
Right, but it takes a certain amount of humility to realize, oh, I didn't know these things. For instance, I didn't know that Zelensky was ordering attacks on Crimea as recently as February of 2021. And that the Ukrainian military had low morale due to these extremist groups. Maybe those of us who didn't know that before starting to study this because of this conflict can take a step back and say, I don't know if this passes the smell test. I don't think I want to just support a government I'm not familiar with, a human government, which is been marked high in corruption to the point that most investors would not even before the conflict invest there. So maybe I'll think about it a little bit more. Sure, I don't like that Russia invaded. I can feel that that was wrong, while at the same time take pause about supporting the other side because I just automatically am told how to feel.
Exactly. And as the judge always... Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, I was going to say, I used to work with a guy, this is like back in 2010 or so. He's definitely like kind of a Portland Antifa kind of personality, but back in 2010 he was always talking about like one of the things he brought up all the time was the Nazis in Ukraine and how like the whole like Ukraine, Russia, and this Nazi area, and like he was constantly talking about that back in 2010. Like this isn't new,
right?
But it's like, but you would never hear
Not
it.
to that guy anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And so
No.
it's like
How come that guy didn't tell us all and then we wouldn't be ready for the...
I mean, we've covered... yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I guess he was telling me and I was supposed to tell everybody else and I just didn't because I was busy.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like, it's like, okay, well, I guess what are we supposed to do with that information, But I think maybe it's one of those things where when you start to see the slow trickle of news stories that are out there and you start to see, CNN, MSNBC, and Washington Post and Huffington Post and all of these news publications that are run by billionaires, and you start to see stories that are trickling out, you start to question, like what we do here on this show and what you guys do to go back to your family is to share this story. I literally saw this video earlier with this Nazi and someone said, why hasn't this gone viral? Because they won't let it go viral. So what you can do with this video right now, literally, is share it with a friend, share it with a family member, smash that like button. I mean, do whatever you can because that pushes it out on the algorithm and more people will see it. I mean, we spend hours a day doing research, to bring you this show. And I want these things to go viral so that this message gets out there. At the end of the day, these warmongers are making money and people are being killed so that they can make money. That's the bottom line. Follow the freaking money.
And we are being told that it is what we should do as taxpayers to buy more weapons to put in the hands of Ukraine. And so therefore we are not allowed to see whether or not Ukraine is a prudent place to send all the weapons and money and guns, right? And so that's all we're asking of you is to think, do I really feel like these politicians that more guns are going to solve world peace? That's a very counterintuitive way to feel.
Right. Yes, the judge says,
Nothing makes sense.
Exactly.
Yes, peace through bombs.
But
is that how you feel?
Judge, I know, I'm telling you, things do make sense. If you just follow the money, it makes total sense. As Wesley Clark said in our pre-show, when he talked about when they had the plans to go into the Middle East, if the Middle East, it was like Africa and it didn't have any oil and no one cared really at all about it, then we wouldn't be attacking them. We wouldn't be trying to do regime change so we can get access to oil and to precious minerals.
Right. Again, because there are bloodier wars happening right now that we all should care about equally, not just because there's money and we have a stake in it, right? So here we care about humans less than governments.
Right. And Philip, to your Portland guy, I mean, this is what was happening right before February of 2022, right? These were the headlines in the mainstream media that in Ukraine. Now, all of this stuff has completely disappeared and gone. These are the headlines, right? Ukraine underplays its role on the far right in conflict. Nazi symbols, salutes on display at Ukrainian nationalist march. Yes, it's still okay to call Ukraine C-14 neo-Nazis. Hundreds march in Ukraine an annual tribute to Nazis. Like, this is Ukraine, guys. But now, as soon as we decided that we're with Zelensky, and
it's as if we're fighting on behalf of utopia.
Right, it's gone.
Like,
it's totally
Ukraine
hidden.
was utopia. Let's restore it. And again, I haven't been there, so it's not for me to say what it was prior to this conflict. But I also am not trying to get a passport or put a bank account there. So, and I am someone who studies international finance and business and diversification. So Ukraine, I would say, was about lowest on my list before this.
Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. We've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.